Dan saya sangat tertarik dan langsung menyodorkan diri ke Mbak Asri waktu itu karena my research was also about migrant workers dan fokus kepada NGO. Dan as an academic, I grew up with this way of thinking, this understanding of when we are talking about migrant workers, and Indonesia, we are talking about the women. We are talking about how they are sent abroad. We are talking about how they are abused, and the document forgery involved in the process. And I think the book that we are going to discuss today is really related to that, A Paper Trail to Citizenship. Is that the title of the presentation?
Yeah.
And the title of the book is Paper Citizens, right? Ya, so makanya saya langsung menyediakan diri untuk berpartisipasi hari ini. Dan satu lagi yang sangat penting juga yang biasanya dibahas pada saat kita bicara tentang migrasi ini adalah how they are used in political moves in the receiving countries. There's a research about how they would be invited to come into Malaysia when they meet Malay voters, but then they're expelled in certain time because of this status as non-documented. And I've also met somebody who did a research on identity, how identity is formed for these migrants. But I haven't met somebody who talk about citizenship out of this. So that's why this session today is interesting, because the book, from the review I read, the book talk about question the meaning of citizenship. Is it enough to look at citizenship from merely the paper? Jadi kalau dulu kita kenal kewarganegaraan berdasarkan kelahiran, tempat lahir, jus soli. That's where you birth, you born, and you sanguinis karena kita menikah atau gimana. Nah, sekarang tanpa itu pun sudah bisa. Bahkan kalau di buku ini, this book, dikatakan bahwa kadang-kadang yang ilegal ini memiliki lebih banyak dokumen dibanding yang citizen aslinya. So they have more proper documents than the original citizens, if you can call it like that. So let me just introduce the speaker for today, Professor Kamal Sadiq. Is that the way you say your name? So he's from. I have your CV. Sorry. Okay. Yes. He got a PhD from the University of Chicago, 2003, and you're now associate professor in Department of Political Science, University of California, Irvine. And sebagai akademik, sebagai peneliti, salah satu achievementnya itu adalah dengan mendapatkan award berupa grant untuk penelitian. Dan Pak Kamal Sadiq di sini sudah mendapatkan so many grants. Prestigious grants untuk penelitiannya. Ada dari Smith Richardson, ada dari UCI, ada dari Guggenheim. So a lot of grants for the research. Tulisan beliau juga ada di mana-mana, ada di berbagai jurnal, dan beliau fokus pada topik-topik seperti citizenship, kewarganegaraan, imigrasi, sekarang tentang urban poor, kemudian juga global politics. Cukup rasanya untuk sekarang perkenalannya. Kita langsung saja, beliau akan memberikan presentasinya sekitar 40 sampai 45 menit. Setelah itu kita bisa berdiskusi.
Thank you, Sylvia, for a very generous introduction. Thank you, Nurul, and thank you all my friends from AKATIGA for inviting me today and for giving me a chance to discuss my earlier research, my previous research and the book. I think this is my first visit to Indonesia, and it's always gratifying when one has published something to see that one was reasonably correct about what they were doing, even years after. And so I think let me start with giving you some introduction, empirical introduction to why I started looking at this. There is a major flaw in the understanding of international migration. The flaw is in ILO, in United Nations, and in OECD. And the flaw is that migration is just poor people coming to developed countries. My argument is that actually most of the migration is taking place between developing countries. So, and most of this migration does not inform most of the theories of citizenship or immigration. In 2011, OECD decided to take out its first report on South-South migration, and they invited me to the release of the report in Washington, D.C., and finally acknowledging that there has been a skewed, the research has been has neglected developing. And part of the problem is the data. Mostly illegal immigration is looked at as a byproduct of controls on regular migration. For example, why do I say this? Let's look at the World Migration Report of 2005. What does it say? It says that the stock of migrants over a 10-year period rose by only 300,000 persons for all developing countries. Okay? Just 300,000. I can assure you that over a period of a decade, 300,000 people entered just India. Forget about Indonesia, Malaysia, forget about it. Just India. So what's the problem? Is the United Nations blind? Is the ILO blind? Is the World Bank blind? No, they tend to just look at census data, and census data is provided to all United Nations organizations. So based on this data, United States 1990 figures, 2010. India only 5.4. That's a joke. 5.4 million. Right? United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Canada, France, the usual suspects, right? Ukraine, right? I can guarantee you that there are many countries in Asia which have a larger number than this, right? And this is because they're undercounting for illegal immigrants. So what are the big flows? The first big flow is of 15 to 20 million Bangladeshis in just India. Okay? We're not talking about 5 million. We're not talking about 10 million. We're talking about just a little less than the population of Australia. Right? Okay. Where it's a historical migration coming from to Assam and West Bengal. There are estimated 4 million just in Assam. Okay? So remember this figure now when I talk about 4 million in one state of India, 5.4 million in one other state. Now go back and think of this figure. Remember this figure as I'm talking, right? So if we say 20 million, then India should be here. Right? So please remember this. And these are not coming from just any. I mean, the book is not about magnitude. estimating. It's not my job. It's the border control or the demographers and economists. That's not my job. But let's see what the Home Minister of India said. He said, and he's a communist Home Minister, former. He said 10 million. Maybe he's not right. Let's look at the right-wing Home Minister. Maybe they don't agree on anything. He's saying 15 million. Let's look at the Home Ministry senior bureaucrat. He says 20 million, right? So we are getting a range of 15 to 20 million, right? The Law Commission report says 350,000. Remember the World Migration Report said how much? In a decade. 300, huh? Here they are saying in 1 year 350,000 illegal immigrants are entering India, which means 15 to 18 million. According to this Law Commission report, I have a copy of that. I also have a copy of the memo sent by the Governor of Assam to the President of India. So, what's the next flow? Pakistan. Is every Afghan a refugee? Who are refugees? Refugees who live in camps, right? That's where you estimate the population. Is every Afghanistan economic reasons even before they faced persecution, right? So, Karachi is a paradise for illegal immigrants. I don't say this, he says this. I'm just quoting Pakistani newspapers, right? So it started in 1979. Well, historically there has been migration, but 1979 has got a really big boost. But they were not eligible for Pakistani citizenship, remember this. Nor were Bangladeshis for Indian citizenship. And that's the real issue. So they were not living in UNHCR relief camps. Many of them just went into Pakistan and settled down outside UNHCR designated areas, which means they were outside those populations that were officially recognized as refugees. Many of these people, right? So a standard account was there are 2.3 million Afghan refugees in Pakistan in 2002. Then they did a census in 2005 and they found 3 million more, which means that there were actually 5 million when the Taliban fell, right? That is double, more than double of what they had estimated, right? Now, even this figure, we don't know. The present estimate is there are 3 million more. We don't know, right? So, do you understand the debate about magnitude? I'm not going to solve that debate. But we have to acknowledge that the numbers we are talking about, even by the smartest demographers and everyone, is huge. We can't nail it down, but we know it's large, right? Then let's look at your neighbor, right? From Philippines and so not Suriname, just Sabah, right? Right now there's a Royal Commission of Inquiry going on in Malaysia, right? They will decide what's the truth on this, right? What is the stock? What does the official census tell us? Between 1970 and 1980, there were only 45,000 Indonesians in Sabah and 36,000 Filipinos. If anyone tells you this, he's joking. This is a joke. Then, okay, let's look at the later, 1991, again, 207,000 persons from Indonesia and 61,000 from the Philippines, right? And of course, many of them have already illegally become, they become citizens of Malaysia, which is what my argument is. But the point is, let's look at Sabah's average population growth rate. Its average population growth rate was 5.7. What was the national average for other states of Malaysia? 2.6. Right? Here. Ini Sabah. You see this? Right? This is Malaysia. This is Malaysia. White. White. Where is this population coming from? Huh? It's obviously coming from somewhere. So out of 2.8 million, maybe 1 million? Right? So, okay, I don't want to get into that debate. 1 million. Jeffrey Kentingan and others, just now in the newspaper, they're all saying it's actually 1.8 million. You know what 1.8 million means? It means almost 2/3 of the population is now foreign. From Philippines, southern Philippines or Indonesia. I don't want to go there. I don't want to say it's that much. 1 million is enough for me, which means 1/3, right? And I'm not talking about fresh immigrants or old immigrants. I'm counting everyone who has come in violation of sovereignty. Period. That's it. That's an immigrant. So, okay, forget about the magnitude. So, 15 to 20 million in India, 1 million in just Sabah, about 2-3 million in Pakistan. They are all coming through, crossing international sovereignty, settling down, and yet, did you see any of these figures in any of the world migration reports? No. So, what does this large migration of unauthorized invisible immigrants means for citizenship? What does it mean for citizenship theory? So I thought citizenship theory will actually tell me something about this, given that there is this large scale, it's happening in Africa, it's happening in Asia, it's happening in a variety of development. What is citizenship? That citizenship is a legal status and is equated with a bundle of legal rights and duties. And this is what citizenship is defined as everywhere. But there's a problem. This is based on the experience of Western states, Western institutional experiences. And who confers citizenship? Well, traditionally it was the sovereign king, the emperor, the sultan, the raja. Today it's the state, right? It's the state which confers citizenship. So citizenship is a status. You get citizenship status, you will get a bundle of rights. Only after legal citizenship has been acquired do you start legitimately exercising the rights that come with citizenship, right? Well, citizenship can also be a nationality. It provides an identity to an individual, it defines the character of the nation. The third is citizenship is a privilege. It opens the path to many safeguarded citizenship rights. Voting in national elections, not municipal, public office, and military service. While the United States is one of the few countries that gives you citizenship for being part of its military, most states require citizenship to be part of the military. What it means is that it gives you a say in the political governance of the state. It's a privilege. It's a status, it's an identity, it's a privilege. Right? But what is it? So this is the first contribution of the book. What do I say? I say this is all based on one major assumption, that states have the capacity to actively distinguish between citizens and non-citizens, between refugees and illegal immigrants and citizens. That receiving states have a population that is documented with standardized paperwork, and that the host population can be distinguished from others, refugees. Which state can do that? Can any state do that? How many states in the world can do that? Maybe even Singapore cannot do that, right? Distinguishing. Who is a citizen? Who's a foreigner? How do you identify a foreigner? How do you identify a citizen? You identify a citizen by birth certificates, high school certificates, driving licenses, passports. In the case of Malaysia, KTP, right? What do I call this? The infrastructure of citizenship. The purpose of this infrastructure of citizenship is to identify and order individual subjects so they can be ruled or seen by the state. There's information in files that catalogs the claims of citizenship distributed in a widespread interlocking web of citizenship identifying citizens, hospitals, schools, welfare organizations, not just Ministry of Interior or Home, simple things like high school records, right? Health departments. In the 21st century or now, paper files are being replaced by databases. So they are all interlinked computer databases, right? In turn, these files are linked to different ministries. Ministries of Public Distribution, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Home, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Banyak Ministry, Banyak School, Banyak little small departments, all giving things, all distributing facilities, health, everything. They are establishing norms, practices, precedents. Citizenship is state making. But what happens if the government coverage is uneven, unreliable, or non-existent? Macam Bangladesh for some years. And then what happens? Then we get blurred membership. So that's one of the central arguments. Blurred membership is, I define it as a claim to membership by long-term residents who are unrecognized, unverified by agents of the state. So, does anyone here have proof that they belong to this state 300 years ago, 200 years ago? My grandmother doesn't have proof of Indian citizenship. My grandmother doesn't. My mother doesn't. Because she was born in a village. If you're born in a village where 90% of the population, actually 95% of India's population lived in 1947, what proof will your great-grandmom have, right? So what is blurred membership? It means it masks the presence of individuals even today. Who are these people? Who are the subjects of blurred membership? Landless, poor, minority, indigenous natives. Blurred membership has three features. It does not arise from the state, meaning Nigeria, Tanzania, India, Bangladesh. It comes from kinship networks. You have to rely on kinship networks to say, oh, he's actually a citizen. And it is only legible locally. It becomes opaque. If you move away from the place, physically or culturally, no one will vouch for it. So there are three features of blurred membership. This condition provides ironic results. Large numbers of native-born individuals may have no legal paperwork to prove their citizenship or nationality, like my grandmother, and we will call them undocumented natives. Normally you think of undocumented illegal immigrants. I am saying undocumented natives. And then I am going further to say, Appa, there are no illegal immigrants without documents. All of them have multiple documents. That's the first thing you get when you go to another country. Fake document. Otherwise you can't survive. So everyone is a documented illegal immigrant. So my argument is there are no undocumented illegal immigrants. Please don't call them undocumented. It's wrong in Malaysia to call anyone undocumented. Have you ever met an undocumented illegal immigrant? Illegal immigrant will have more documents than the local poor guy. And that's coming out to be true, as we will see soon from the Royal Commission's report. I'm sure it will prove that. Well, what is the first document that the society provides? Your birth certificate. Without which you don't exist. You don't have any legal identity. You will not be the rates of the first most important document that allows for population management of a state. Right? But it is a two-stage process. First is when you are born. That means the registration happens of your biography, your name, your father's name, mother's name, sex, location, maybe your religion, maybe your physical weight, maybe any features, cut here, this here, that here. Then, as a result of that registration, the second step takes place. This is the important part. That is, you can be registered, tapi you won't have a birth certificate. Birth certificate is what you request the state to give you later. So in many countries it is a two-stage process. It's a two-stage process in India, it is a two-stage process in many developing countries. So you may be registered, but to ask for a birth certificate you have to again apply or get a form, right? So, And the birth certificate, my argument is a feeder document. It doesn't matter. It leads to other documents. Without birth certificate, you can't get this, you can't get that. Your whole life is like you're a document, right? You were born, birth certificate. This is how our life is. Born, birth certificate. Primary school, Aadhaar certificate. From the school. Vaccination, Aadhaar certificate. You die early, Aadhaar certificate. Then you go to high school, certificate. Marriage, certificate. Driver's license, certificate. Pension, certificate. Mati, certificate. Right? Whole life, Aadhaar certificate. You can do nothing without certificate. Certificate mean what? State meaning. Citizenship. Right? So that's what I'm saying. But the starting point, birth certificate. Basic. Biggest document, passport. Because it allows you to leave the country, leave the sovereignty. Right? What's the coverage of birth certificate? This is 2000 figures. Since then, UN has been, UNHCR, everyone, UNHCR, UN, UNICEF, all working UNDP to improve this. 2000. Sub-Saharan Africa, 72% people don't have birth certificate. According to 2000. Don't have. Developed countries, 98% have. So distinguishability assumption doesn't hold here. They can distinguish. Because everyone has birth certificate. South Asia, 62%. Sub-Saharan Africa, 72%. You can't tell. Nobody can identify who's from Tanzania. In Tanzania, you don't know who's from Tanzania. In Ivory Coast, you don't know. That's why there's a problem. People from Mali and neighboring countries are living there. South Africa, no one knows how many people from Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Right? So, India's birth registration rate, according to UNICEF 2001, 34.7%. Let me give you the census figure. Here, rural area 28.9, urban area slightly higher, total 34.7. These are okay. Much improvement has been made. And Pakistan, very low. Right? But even this is guesswork, in my opinion. I don't think their census knows it's even this much. It's probably even lower. Right? But we are talking about what? 30% of the population? Newborn child has 30%? How will you trace that individual over the rest of their life? Varies with what? Literacy, rural-urban divide, cultural practices. In many societies, when they are born, it's considered bad, unholy. Tapi in the West, when my son was born, he had to have a name on the day he was born. The form was filled with his name. So imagine doing that in India where it takes 1 month to 1 year to choose a name, right? So what name will you come up immediately after delivery? Baba, Bobby, something like that, right? So you won't say Baba, Ben, da 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 da, full name, because you're not thinking at that point, right? So cultural practices delay the naming of the child. But if you delay the child, then you will need upper what? If you go after a year to the same authority, you will need 2 witnesses, da 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 da, because you have to fill up the form, because it's not being done on the day of the birth. There is no authentic validity to the name you are choosing because you are doing it after. So cultural, medical practices. My father retired 1 year, maybe 2 years earlier. Because his mother when she went to school, she said, oh, he was born on that day when the moon was fully clear and the clouds were there. She guessed he retired 2 years earlier. 2 years of salary. You understand? You think this is my experience? This is common. Common all over Indonesia. I guarantee you, common in Malaysia, rural parts, common everywhere. So there is variation. High levels of birth registration in developing countries like Malaysia, rural areas, East Malaysia, suddenly low. Turkey, 85%, developed parts, rural parts, East Turkey, 56%. We are talking about reasonably well-developed countries here, right? So forget about Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia. This leads us to the third factor, networks of complicity. By networks of complicity, I mean the bending and manipulation of state laws to facilitate the entry, settlement, and socio-economic participation of illegal immigrants by groups within the political leadership and administration. Networks of complicity are everywhere. They corrode the gatekeeping functions of the state. If you're an illegal immigrant, who do you go to? You don't go outside. You go to the very place that's going to regulate you. You go to the border patrol guy, because he's the one who's going to give you entry. You go to the citizenship officer, because he's going to give you. You go to the very institutions that are supposed to keep you out, and you corrode it. So, why is complicity possible? Because each individual can play two roles. I can be a border guard, but I could be married to an illegal immigrant. So in my house, in the morning I guard the border, in the evening I keep her relatives and friends. Right? Same thing, a border guard in Pakistan. He's Pashtun. Huh? Do you think he's going to stop Pashtun refugees and illegal immigrants from Pakistan coming into? Or will he let them in? You think, you're a Pashtun, you're standing border guard in the daytime. In the evening you're letting everyone through. So network, I don't call it corruption. Corruption is a shallow term because it means only one thing. It means profit, but it's not for profit. These are networks that are hidden. And these are networks for profit because you can see there is 5 billion worth of informal trade between Bangladesh and India. In fact, Hari Raya cannot be celebrated in Bangladesh without 1 million cattle from India going to Bangladesh. There is no meat in Bangladesh for celebration for Eid al-Adha. Comes from Indian cattle. Now, we're not talking about diamonds. We're talking about cattle. Cattle is this big, at least this big. Do you know 1 million cattle crossing from India to Bangladesh?
It's like
What does it mean? Either are Banya 747s or they're openly crossing on the road. Because it's not a diamond, as I said, it's this big, right? It takes many months and days for them to cross. It can't happen without networks of profit between India and Bangladesh. Means state officials have to be in it. Not high ranking, just local. It's what we call networks of profit, but other networks for political reasons also. Because you think that you are doing a favor to your co-ethnic, other co-Mexican across US-Mexican border. You're helping a Turk, you're helping an Algerian in Spain. Co-ethnic, co-religious, co-racial group, right? So, and then after a while, they become a political force as we know in Malaysia, as we know in India, as we know in Pakistan, the 3 cases I've looked at. So I'll try to skip over some of this, but some of this I'll show you. For example, right now the Royal Commission is going to go over this evidence. I know that because this is the evidence that Dr. Chong's lawsuit has created in Sabah. And I was there when the court case was going on. So who issued these 130,000 illegal immigrants, IC Palsu di Sabah? Who issued it? Under whose guise? Who issued? Malaysian. So networks of complicity. And if you have network, they'll erase the difference between what is legitimate and illegitimate. You can't tell the difference. So because of this, we come to documentary citizenship. What is documentary citizenship? I call the process by which citizenship status is ascribed to a non-citizen by the acquisition and possession of seemingly legal documents that prove juridical membership. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter if it's fake or real, as long as it appears real, you will become citizen. Now I don't know. It's an informal device, a back channel to many of the benefits associated with the narrow and more difficult paths to legal citizenship. In fact, it allows many illegal immigrants access to political suffrage. Right? So you have to ask yourself, are there illegal immigrants from Indonesia and Malaysia who have acquired Malaysian citizenship? Kalau they have acquired, are they voting in Malaysian elections? Kalau they are voting in elections, have they renounced their Indonesian citizenship or not? Maybe not. Right? Are they de facto dual citizens? So then we have to challenge the traditional view of citizenship. We'll say, oh, he has status, he's exercising rights. I'm saying completely reverse. I'm saying you get networks of levels of networks of complicity in a blurred society, and yet you will have access to documentary citizenship. Documentary citizenship is nothing but citizenship. So what have I shown? The exercise of a range of citizenship right is contingent on what? Possession of documents. This is a document-bearing society. Everywhere people don't know you are Maria, you are who, they will ask Ada ID. Everywhere, even anywhere you go to a internet shop, they'll ask you, right? Everywhere you want Raskin, they will ask you, I'm pretty sure. Even unauthorized immigrants can get it. Now, for later on, or perhaps now, Indonesia has to think about it. Ada banyak refugees, illegal immigrants dalam Indonesia. Or a visitor, he marries, maybe he has a children, the children will sponsor him. All of them go through naturalization. Here is an illegal person. He enters, maybe he'll get illegal employment, maybe he'll get regularized. Or he'll use fake documents, then regularize. Atau marriage, employment. Children become citizen, they sponsor. Both of them end up at naturalization and becoming citizens, in my opinion. So there is what? Even if he's not regularized or he doesn't have any children after 30, 40 years, nor married, which is highly unlikely, he still maintains he's got the my card or Indian whatever, right? Voter ID. So in short, documents give states power for social and political sorting and thereby order. But that very thing can be undermined by a very proactive illegal immigrant. So then this part of my research then goes on to say, actually show how in India, Pakistan and in Malaysia, how people have been voting in which elections and which regions. So I'll skip through this. So one rickshaw puller in Bangladesh, he said, we vote not to elect a representative, but to ensure our citizenship of India. He's voting because the many number of votes he casts, he has more and more proof that he is a regular citizen. So in some senses, I call them suffraged non-citizens, right? These are suffrage. Suffrage you usually say is only for citizenship. Up here, suffrage non-citizenship. So how can you vote in Indian elections? You can vote the foreigners who have illegally issued identification cards and were registered as voters. Okay. Then there are illegal immigrants who issued fake IDs bearing the names of those who appear on electoral rolls. Then there are those who appear on ID cards bearing the name of dead people, people who are already dead and have to be eliminated from. So how many documents does it take to vote in Indian national elections? How many? 20, well it says 21, actually it should be 22. 21 documents. And you can use any of these documents to vote. Once you vote, you go and get a passport. You know how easy it is to get a ration card, student identity card, arms license, pension document, freedom fighter, physically handicapped, tea garden certificate, Panchayati Raj, where is that book? Agricultural passbook, income tax, driver's license, anyone can get. Look at this. Look at this list. Train, ID, anyone can get this. You can vote in national election. Right? And what happens if you don't have this? I asked this from the Census Commissioner of India, Mr. Bangya. He says, if you cannot get this, we have to assure that everybody has a right to vote because there are many poor people. That person can get 2 witnesses from the local village and they'll be allowed to vote. Finish. So, how many voters from Bangladesh voted in the 1997 election? They were found, they called D voters, 375,000. in one election, in one state, right? And goes on. Then you know I don't want to give you data. Forget this data, right? But the point is, if you look at in India and Malaysia, here Malaysia, the data is on the native groups. So Kadazan Muslims used to be 32%, now they're 18%. This is census data. Population is declining, but why is it declining? So the High Court Justice Awang said this, that the instances of non-citizen phantom voters, they call them, is just the tip of the iceberg. What kind of Qasim bin Ali? This is real case. I'm not making this up. IC number is this. Anwar, IC number this. Kadilabad, IC. Most of them are from Sulu, from southern Philippines, Baja. I talk to many people. A lot of them are Bugis from Indonesia. If you are living in Malaysia, what is your great hope? That you will have an ID so you can settle up? Maybe you're also married, it will give legitimacy to your marriage, maybe it's illegal otherwise, you'll have problems in getting ID. So, this guy, I have two ID, right? And one is Tamrin as Ismail, one is Nasir Abdullah, right? Nasir B. Abdullah, same guy signed it, same guy attested it, two different IDs, he can vote in two different districts in the same election. Okay, I'm not going to show you more of this. Let's get out of this. Because this is controversial part. But I don't want to use this. And the reason is, it's immaterial. It will take away from the theory. The point is that people are voting in national elections because you have blood membership. And that's happening in Pakistan. Pakistan's National Registration Department estimates says that there are about 80 illegal Bangladeshis who've been elected in the council office of Karachi. But they're office holders, you know. And what have I shown? Illegal immigrants can vote. Documents enable the political participation. And there are parties now developing. Parties in India, parties in Malaysia, and parties in parts of Pakistan who would not like the illegal immigrants to go, who want them, who depend on them. So, what does this mean? That one does not have to look at the individual for confirmation of his or her identity. You just have to look at their documents, right? And how do we know this from an international perspective? I'll give you one example. Okay, this is the number of Pakistanis who are being deported from Karachi to Karachi airport, right? These are all people with Pakistani passports. Each of them is an Afghan. Now, they're all Afghans, but they're being deported to Pakistan because they hold Pakistani passport. This is not my statistics. This is Karachi airport statistics. Right? Number of stolen passports in Pakistan. This is just 1 year, 2001, right? Total 5,320. Who's buying this? Mostly Afghans. But what am I saying? So, if you're a state, you would say, oh, major problem for sovereignty and security. Maybe it will lead to, they are going to have a say in the governance. The state will say. The second thing, the state would say, oh, they are now becoming increasingly violent against natives. Mumkin we will have native versus immigrant tensions. Right? Okay. Second thing. Third, they could say, illegal immigrants, they're coming from wherever, they do heroin smuggling, drug smuggling, prostitution, they breed like rabbit, all kinds of stereotypes. States can say they can pose these challenges to sovereignty. But that's only one side of the story. For me, the more important thing is, what was our understanding of citizenship? You get status, you get rights. I'm saying reverse. You get rights first, slowly, this right, that right. Vegetable seller, right? You get one document, other. After 20 years, you have a whole file of documents. Then you say, I want ID. The test is, of course, you've lived here for 20 years, show me the proof. Here's the proof. The reverse is also true. In developing countries, people can engage in some of the citizenship rights first, then accumulate documents over time to lay claim to citizenship status. By making citizens out of illegal immigrants, documents are challenging the traditional relationship between immigrants and citizens. Right? If citizenship is the practice of citizenship rights, then illegal immigrants will continue to exercise them as a part of their livelihood. And they will be integrating as citizens as well. So in such a situation, status does not reflect membership. Right? So this is sort of a larger reflection. We have new expanding subjects. The subject of citizenship is no longer being set by the state. Those beyond the state's reach can no longer be continuously treated as outsiders. So is democracy undermined by, I got a lot of questions on democracy. Do you think democracy is undermined by illegal immigrant voter? Well, it's up to you. From one practice you can say, oh, this is a very poor, dysfunctional democracy. Poorly worked out liberal democracy. It allows unauthorized people to vote, and it weakens the social contract. Or because the porous borders, documentary chaos, easy access to start. But if illegal processes are an organic form of community building, isn't it state control over such things arbitrary? So I would say, actually this is good. We should celebrate developing countries because they are more inclusive. They privilege accessibility over verification. In fact, rather than a poorly functioning Westphalian state, this is a new democracy and citizenship. Because illegal immigrants too are a long-term resident of the local community. And they are active. In fact, they are more active than citizens in participating because they are eager to get proofs. So they can be viewed as actually perfect stakeholders in democratic politics. Economic citizenship, social citizenship, political citizenship, they are more proactive. So then they are actually better citizens in many cases. So why do we celebrate Europe? Europe says, oh, political boundaries are radiating out, we are going to all pool our sovereignty, and therefore every multiple stakeholders in multiple residences will be part of this expanding citizenship. But isn't that what's happening in these countries, in India, Malaysia, and Afghanistan, and Pakistan? Should we celebrate how easily they allow Afghans and Bangladeshis, and in the case of Malaysia, proactively taking part in the citizenship of their residents? Thank you. I think this is more than enough.